What's up, everybody? Welcome to your favorite subscription podcast, Badlands. Connor here in the main host chair, joined by PK. Joe is out on a little vacation, but he's still podcasting from across the world, which is just wild. We really appreciate him for that. But if you haven't listened to the other guys yet, here's your reminder as PK's joining me this week for, Paul, this is a massive podcast. You have huge shoes to fill right now.
I know. I'm very nervous coming into this.
Yeah,
The
you're
week
not.
before,
You're completely fine. I mean, what's has everybody nervous right now is that as you and I sit here about 5 p.m. Tuesday, we are less than a week out from the Jets traveling to San Francisco to play the Niners on Monday Night Football. Is that this felt like this is the day Hassan Reddick will show up. He's going to start losing even more money, and somehow no sign of Hassan Reddick. I will say when these things get done, there's usually no leaks of anything. It's been very quiet overall from the Jets beat today. I know Saleh had a press conference and what do you call it? Like couch change, like under the cushion change, which is I wouldn't describe a double-digit sack guy over the last 4 years as a quarter I would find under my couch cushion. But here we are, PK. It feels like the worst-case scenario has kind of developed here with Hassan Reddick, which is a terrible way to start a week that we're really excited for, and we're going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about. But that's just the reality, the way to kick it off.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think not only did the fans expect it because the fans were finding the breadcrumbs of if he doesn't come this day, this is when he starts to lose money and all those things. But it sounds like the team expected it also. And so to not hear anything and to your point, like they do sometimes tend to come out of nowhere. Like nobody heard anything about Trent Williams for weeks, and then all of a sudden it's done, right? So it could turn on a dime. We don't know. But it was kind of the day that everybody was looking forward to, and it didn't happen. So tough way to start the week for sure.
And I think it's, of course, a big part of it is just that, they start in San Francisco against the Niners, who will be a lot of people's, pundits, analysts, fans pick to go back to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, or at least they're in that company at the top three teams. So if the Jets had a college football style opener, whether it's, their version of playing Akron or whoever it may be, like the Jets, there's not a lot of those in the NFL, and the Jets schedule kind of starts that way after week one. So it's hard to convince yourself that the Jets don't need to be the absolute best version of themselves in this game when the team on the other side got Christian McCaffrey back at practice this week, Brandon Ayuk signed, Trent Williams signed. Now, it's not a lock they're going to play, but I will probably tell you it's probably a lock they're going to play. I mean, there was urgency on their end because that's just a different football team with and without Trent Williams. So now it's not to say, let's get right into it. It's not to say the Jets can't win this game, right? I mean, this is a brutal road trip against a great opponent that the man running the 49ers operation knows Robert Saleh's defense, because Kyle keeps this defense with him no matter who the DC is as they change seats there. He's going to understand what the Jets are trying to do. He knows a thing or two about Aaron Rodgers as well, including his staff. So it's arguably the toughest matchup of the year for the Jets week one. It'll be interesting to see the overreactions it creates if it doesn't go their way. But on the flip side, some of those arguments can be made on the other side of it. This is a Niners team that has to deal with an Aaron Rodgers that is going to be looking to prove the world wrong again. This is a Niners team that has to deal with a healthy Jets offensive line. Can we say that will be the case in week 10 with 33-year-old tackles and guys like that? Like, no, it's a war of attrition in the NFL. So, and knock on wood, the Jets got through summer really healthy. I mean, we're not looking at this like, hey, Garrett Wilson's dealing with a sprained ankle. He might not be out there. We're not dealing with this, will or will not Sauce Gardner play. Like the Jets, their top guns are ready to play. So I do find it interesting, especially as this line is what I've seen mostly hovered around 5.5 points. I haven't watched the movement since the Niners got their guys locked in and the Jets don't have Reddick back, but I still think the Jets' talent is being somewhat overlooked in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think you'd rather see the Niners in week 1 than in week 10 in the thick of a division race when they're raring and everything's kind of rolling for them, right?
They're slow starters sometimes.
100%. And wacky things happen in week 1 in the NFL. Week 1 is always the hardest to bet because you don't know what you're getting. Teams that you think are going to lose are going to win, and teams that you think are going to win are going to lose. So there's no really better time of the year to have this game on the schedule than right now, and then kind of cruise into, week 2 to 6, where it might get a little easier based on what we think and what we know now about those teams on the schedule 2 to 6. But look, I mean, I think all those guys are going to play. You basically said it. Trent Williams can play off the street, and he was keeping himself in shape. Ayuk was a hold in. He was there the whole time. McCaffrey, he's a pro. Like, he's going to be there. They're going to be at full strength, and we're pretty much at full strength. So I don't know. I would rather see them now than later on in the season. Like, let's get it out of the way, and I think maybe we could surprise them and surprise some people as well.
I'm with you. The goal of the NFL is traditionally, and I kind of hate that it's become this in a way, but with the new CBA, the reduced practicing, not a lot of people playing in the preseason, the ramp up period almost drags into September. That September it lies to you more than ever in this era of the NFL. And this isn't like copium in any way, like preparing for a Jets loss and everything's going to be fine because then they play the Titans, Patriots, Broncos, Vikings before they play the Bills. But more or less the argument, like you said, go into a heavyweight fight out of the gate. Be ready to roll. And maybe this is part of the math of the Jets scheduling 3 joint practices, which led the NFL. It was tied for the most in the NFL. And in those joint practices, it felt like they gave their starters as much throttle as they could, knowing, hey, we're not going to suit you up in the preseason game. This is your preseason game out against the ones. And the Jets handled themselves really well in those joint practices. So I don't fully buy into the, hey, they didn't play in the preseason. Are they going to be a little slow out of the gate? Everybody's naturally going to be a little slow out of the gate because of the state of the CBA and how much you're allowed to do in the summer. But there is something to get yourselves in a dogfight week 1. Let's see the outcome, which I think is going to be a close game. And then you never take your foot off the gas in the NFL, but you're telling me the Titans on a Sunday 1:00 game, that feels like the biggest, like, kind of come down to earth matchup. And I know it's another road game, and I know the Titans are going to be a little spunkier than people are giving them credit for with the coaching staff they have. But that's a matchup for the Jets that if the Jets are fully running on all cylinders because they just had this dogfight with the Niners, you feel like they're going to start taking care of business and find themselves on a roll. But we'll stick to week 1 here, PK.
Which is a wacky thing to say, by the way, to just see a game on the schedule and be like, yeah, we're going to roll. No problem, right?
Weird territory.
It's a weird territory. It's a weird spot for us to be. And to your point about September as a liar, like, how many Jet seasons have we had? I can think of 2 in recent memory with Zach Wilson where they got off to pretty good starts and then sputtered into nothing down the stretch. I can think of a few playoff seasons going back 15 years or so that started out looking pretty ugly and then got hot later in the year. So you're right. It really, I don't want to say that it doesn't matter what happens in September. Obviously it does, but you don't really have the full picture by the time September rolls out. It starts to develop in October, November. So, it's a good time on the schedule to have this game. And God, I can't wait. I'm just itching for it at this point.
What to you is the most anticipated, and throughout last year, right? Because Rodgers' debut, but we all know what happened. So it's not worth putting that in the discussion. And I do think the Jets, because of what happened last year, will, in a way, come out a little quieter this year. And I know that's easy to say because they open on the road and then they play on the road again. And then their home opener, as Joe and I have discussed, very weird. It's a Thursday night game. It's against New England, but it's just a weird timing for a home opener. I feel like they're going to go into this season a little quieter with the pregame kind of build up. But what do you think besides last year? Like, when did we have a game with this level of expectations? I can't. It's got to be a while now because let's just be real. When maybe Darnold's debut.
Well, that's the first one I was going to go to for sure because
right. I think it's Darnold because the problem with Zach is everybody was almost nervous because we'd been burned by young quarterbacks before, and you're like, let me just see what happens. With Darnold, and I fell victim to this once upon a time, Darnold was, wow, how did this happen? How did we get this guy at 3? He was supposed to be the bona fide consensus number 1 overall pick. He's the savior. You can't miss with him. So I guess that would be my answer. But man, that was quietly a long time ago.
And not that this matters, but like that was also a Monday night game. Remember, right. They were wearing those alternate uniforms with white face masks. Like, they looked cool. It looked different. He throws the pick 6 out of the gate, and then he goes ballistic and has a great game. Couple long touchdowns to Robbie Anderson. So that's definitely the closest one. And you're right. Like, right after that with Zach Wilson, it was not that way because we had been humbled by what happened with Darnold. Right. And everybody was like walking on eggshells with that. Before that, you're looking back to coming off the AFC championships, or you're looking back to Favre Favre's first game, or you're looking back to 99's first game, which was a disaster, an abject disaster. So, like, you have to go pretty far back before the Darnold game.
Right. I think that's what it comes down to, because it does take some life out of it because it's a road game. But to me, I think everybody is just like waiting for Aaron Rodgers to complete a pass as a Jet. That's literally what it feels like to me, where it's once he basically, if Rodgers drops back and hits literally Conklin on a hook or Garrett Wilson on a slant, or even they just throw a slip screen to Breece Hall, everybody will be like, they'll sink into their chair.
Yeah, big exhale.
Yeah, and they'll be like, he's in the stat sheet. Like, let's go. Like, he's a Jet, and now let's play football. And
Can you imagine the eruption that would happen on the first completion if it was at MetLife?
That's the problem I have with this. This is going to make me seem like a homer, and I stay out of this territory often, but I'll go with it here. I don't think the NFL schedule makers nailed this one at all. And I'm sure Niners fans might feel the opposite way. Like, there's the storyline of this is Rodgers' childhood team. It's Kyle Shanahan. It's Robert Saleh. The Jets are supposed to be really good in the AFC. The Niners have been really good in the NFC. But I just feel like, in a way, they almost owed the Jet fan the redemption of the Rodgers home debut. It's like, let's put it like this. And listen, I hope this happens. But if Rodgers, say the Jets start off the season 1-1 or 2-0, and Rodgers has thrown for about 270 yards each game, we'll say he's averaging about 2 touchdowns, no picks in each game. It feels different that week 3 against New England. Instead of, it's like, we've kind of been watching him on TV for 2 weeks now. It won't have the same level of buildup, I think. But there is the side to it that I think the Jet fan just wants to see them beat the absolute shit out of New England, no matter what the format is. So I won't take away from that.
But it would have been nice, to your point earlier about, like, we could have scheduled New England week 1, Monday night at home. That's our Akron game, right? And you would have still had all the anticipation. It doesn't help that Leonard Floyd is now on the Niners. Like, that's not really great for my psyche.
Not a good vibe at all.
No.
But it's nice that it's not the 2023 tackles blocking him. That's the big difference here, why this storyline has not lived rent-free in my head. Because it's Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses suiting up instead.
Right. It's not Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton.
Whatever was left of Dwayne Brown and what Mekhi Becton had become. It's very, very different. I want to get back to this game in the nitty-gritty a little bit, but in the spirit of week 1, especially in a way, how many Jet games do you go to like at this stage of your life?
At this stage of my life, very, very few. I had season tickets from, my family had them from 1978 until about 2011. I think we did it.
You guys are almost identical to my dad and my uncle.
Well, there's a lot of stories like that because they moved to the stadium and a bunch of people were like, all right, I'll try it. And then they saw it and 1-2 seasons in were like, this stinks, right? This is not the same as it used to be. And so that's when we fell off. And since then, honestly, like there was a stretch of probably 8 years where I went to one game. And then the last couple years, I've been working my way back into it. So probably 1 or 2 a year is what I'm at.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's just it's different when you have a family and the new stadium is not as, I think fan friendly for everybody in terms of just the process. And I respect the fans that like, they're just there no matter what. I really do. Obviously doing Jets pre and post game, we do it out of, World Trade Center. I am not at games anymore. Hopefully we eventually do a game for pregame from there. But okay, so, and that didn't matter here because it's an away game. What is your week 1? Do you have like traditions? Are there certain people you will or won't watch with? Like what is the process to this game being on Monday night?
So it's an interesting season for me to be asked this question because my brother has been my brother and I, we always went to games together, and he has been kind of living all over the world in various places that are not the tri-state area for the last 15, 20 years. And he just moved home 3 months ago, right? So this is the first week 1 we're going to be together other than week 1, we were both in Poland for his wedding, and that was the year that Revis went to the Buccaneers, and it was Gino's first start, I think.
Yeah.
And we all watched that Jets-Bucks game in a bar in Warsaw, Poland somewhere.
What was the
So
process of getting them to put that on the TV, by the way? As a man that's been to Europe and looked all over for college football one Saturday, and it's gotten a lot better, by the way. Let me make that clear.
it
But you're
has,
you're
yeah.
you're not saying this was like last year,
No, this was 2013. Yeah,
right?
it was a good while ago. Yeah, no, I mean it was a wedding party, so like everything had been prearranged.
Okay.
Like literally, there were 150 people at this tiny bar that was like right near where the wedding happened. So it was a process, though. And my brother did live in Ireland for 10 years, and like it was hard for him to watch games. Man, it was
Yeah.
really, really hard.
And that's it's changed a lot in Ireland. There's a massive NFL presence, but that's
Yep.
really new for the coverage it gets from the Irish media. You're right. It's totally changed. And that's why the NFL is so hell-bent on going global. I mean, we have a game in Brazil on Friday that'll be on
Yep.
Peacock. Shout out to one of my workplaces. I mean, it's just totally different. So this is a little bigger of a deal.
Yeah, yeah. So like presumably I'm going to be together with him. Back in the day it was a little different, right? Like if it was a home game, we were always going to be cooking. Like it was
Yeah.
I have a big family, so, steak sandwiches in the parking lot on the grill, all that. Usually when I was of age, like Bloody Marys in the morning at my uncle's house before we went over to the stadium. I grew up like literally like 7 minutes from the stadium. So we were right
You're
there.
early.
We would get there 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Recently, like, and this isn't necessarily a week one tradition, but recently what I do, like older, have a family, don't really go to games anymore, is I'll try to make whatever I'm making for the family on Sunday is from the city that we're playing against, right?
That's
So
fun.
think buffalo wings for the Bills, think clam chowder for the Patriots, things like that.
What is San Francisco?
Dude, it's bad. It's like this weird seafood shellfish stew that like I'm not sure if I'm willing to commit to it, so
You
I'm
don't
still
have
in
to
the
do
research
this.
phase.
I was gonna say I'm a well-traveled United States man at this point, and I've been to San Francisco. I did not have any and I like to eat when I go visit a city. Like I like to eat, like you just said, their food. It's usually one of the first things I do. When I was in San Francisco, I drank wine up in
Yeah.
Napa. I didn't like go. There was no food I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I could think of was like I kept coming back to like rice-a-roni, and I was like, I'm not gonna make a box of rice-a-roni.
That'd be a good bit, though. That'd be a really good bit. Like, hey, it's just bowls of rice-a-roni all around. Oh man, that's really good. Okay.
How about you? What are your traditions for week one?
It really does change over the years. I mean, especially growing up, because my dad and my uncle had the tickets, right? So they had 2 seats. So they would always go to the first game together. That was always the case. I'd always go to a preseason game and a regular season game. Depending how the schedule worked out, sometimes I'd go to more than one regular season game, but they always did the first game together. So usually that meant I was home watching the game, and whether I'd have, friends over or I'd be with my mom, who's a Jet fan, that was really it. And if it was an away game, then my dad was home and we were watching the game. And then college, it was pretty simple. Like I had my friends in my crew that were Jet fans, but really everybody that liked football all got together every single Sunday, every primetime game, and we watched the games. Now that I do pre and post game, I'm gone the whole day. I mean, literally the whole day. Like it's totally changed. Usually how I do it now is I wake up. This is going to be a Monday, so it's even more weird. I'll wake up, I'll drive to NBC, I'll run home real quick, let the dog out, take the train. So I'll come back from Connecticut to Westchester, take the train down to the city. We'll do our pre-show meeting, and really, the first week is a big pre-show meeting. Like we really want to be on point, and then we'll do the show the whole night, and then I'll come home like really, really late. Usually not till like 3 a.m. But if it's a normal Sunday, usually my wife will make a pot of sauce all day. So it's like do the game at 1 o'clock, get home at a good hour. It will do whether it's ravioli, some kind of pasta, some kind of meatball or sausage with the sauce, loaf of bread, wine, and then watch Sunday Night Football after Joe and I record Badlands. So it's like really changed for me over the years because I'm so removed from the stadium experience. But I really do miss it a lot too. There was some really awesome times. I guess, to be honest with you, if I was ever going to miss an era of the stadium, like this was the era to miss because they just have been so bad for so long. I feel like I haven't been going to the stadium now. I mean, really since pre and post game started a couple of years ago. But before that, I was going to like one a year, things like that. It'll be interesting what I do this year because the Jets don't play Sunday. and I'm home. So I can just do whatever the hell I want. But I'll be honest with you, and this is like, I don't mean this in any like arrogant or like weird way. I don't enjoy watching football as much with massive groups anymore. And I think it's because I'm just so ingrained in it. Like Sunday, I'll have Sunday ticket on. But if it's just like me, my wife, like if my parents wanted to come, or if people hit me up, I would hang out with them. But it's really just something where I'll just sit there and like eat and just watch football by myself. Like I have no problem watching football by myself anymore.
Yeah, I mean the way you said that, it kind of, it's causing me to come forward about something, but like I don't like to watch football in groups, and it's mostly because I get like maniacal when I'm watching the Jets, and like I especially, how hard is it to watch the Jets with like, and I don't mean to sound like gatekeeping or anything, but like with,
I know
like,
where you're going though, and I get you.
With like casual Jet fans,
everyone listening to this podcast relates to us right now.
Exactly,
they are not the casual Jet fan. If you're listening to this podcast, you are
exactly
a diehard Jet fan that like probably needs to lock themselves in an 8x8 room with a TV when things get really dire in the fourth quarter.
100%.
And you just want to be at peace. You can't forget going to the bar, because there's always the guy at the bar that just laughs at the Jets, and you're just like, please shut the fuck up. Like, yes. And you're like, I know we sound terrible, I get it, but it's the life we've lived as Jet fans that you just want to be at peace. And this is the year you're supposed to really enjoy it.
And I think like a good example of this is like, imagine being with a group of people who don't care as much as you do last year, and how you would have handled it.
I just what were you doing when this happened?
So I was pretty much like on the couch at home with my family, and like everybody else, my phone started going crazy.
Yeah.
And most of them were like legitimate, like, oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I cannot believe that just happened.
Yeah.
But then obviously there are some people who just don't get it, who throw like the, this would only happen to the Jets, like things like that, which like we can say that, but you're not allowed to say that. You know what I mean?
I agree. Obviously Rodgers is also, there's a special level of consensus dislike from the non-Jet fan.
Yep.
So